What personality type are you? What motivates your behavior? Discover the answers to these fascinating questions on Types, Your Personality Revealed. Hosted by personality experts Katherine and David Fauvre.
Welcome to Types, Your Personality Revealed. My name is David. My co-host Katherine and I are experts in personality typing. This is our second show in our ongoing series in which we are exploring what motivates human behavior, and in particular, the 9 Enneagram personality types. In our last show, we learned that we are all born with a specific personality type and temperament that determines our strengths and motivations, and even our weaknesses. We also began to explore the 9 different Enneagram personality types, how to use the Enneagram symbol, and the 3 centers of intelligence, the head, heart, and gut. In this show, we're going to take a deeper and more revealing look at core motivation, fears, and self-image of the 9 types. This data comes from our ongoing research on personality type and self-image. With this knowledge, many of you may be able to determine your personality type or the type of someone you know. We invite you to explore this further and take our online Enneagram personality tests at enneagram.net.
Beginning with my first research study and confirmed by the studies that followed, I found that each Enneagram type speaks in their own language. People with the same Enneagram type use the same or similar words to describe themselves and their experiences. For example, the 7 will talk about their ideas, the future, what is enjoyable and interesting, whereas the 4 will talk about their feelings, the past, and will often look for the deeper meaning or significance of any given situation to better understand themselves and others. So the 7 is not only future-oriented, they frequently use the word future in their vocabulary. In contrast, the 4 is not only past-oriented, they frequently use the word past when trying to understand issues in the present. This research also suggests that people of the same type, regardless of their age, gender, education, or nationality, will have the same self-image and the same core fears. This expanded my view of the 9 types and further defined the way in which they see themselves as opposed to how they are seen by others.
Over the last 15 years, Katherine and I have collected more than 15,000 questionnaires on the self-image of the 9 Enneagram types. Many years ago, when I first became acquainted with Katherine's work, I was astounded to learn that her research had revealed that each type actually describes themselves and their life experiences in their own lexicon or set of words. To further explore these research findings, I commissioned an MIT PhD to program a language classifier. This was done to detect and empirically validate the complex patterns of language use that Katherine found. In the last 10 years, we have analyzed the results and continue to find consistent patterns of language use, not only for each Enneagram type, but for each instinctual subtype and tri-type as well. We use this research to create the Ennea cards and to power our online Enneagram tests, making them highly accurate in identifying one's image of themselves and personality type. As we mentioned in our first show, it's helpful to remember that our ego and personality type behave much like the operating system of a computer. Our personality type unconsciously directs us to avoid certain fears and motivates us to behave in a particular way. When we behave in this way, it feels good to us. We take it for granted, believing that it's the way everyone is motivated to behave. But in actuality, this strategy only applies to those that share our personality type. Our actions, perceptions, and emotions are far more habitual and automatic than we realize. Identifying our Enneagram type is the key to liberating ourselves from unconscious habitual ways of reacting, thinking, and feeling. Understanding our type enables us to make conscious the core motivations and fears that govern our personality. We can then make new and different choices in our lives instead of just running on automatic. This can quickly and dramatically increase the quality of our relationships and allow us to manifest our true potential. Next, Katherine is going to share with you her research into the language of the 9 types.
Thank you, David. My first research study, Enneastyle, the 9 languages of Enneagram Type, explored the self-image of the 9 types. Initially, I sent 400 Enneastyle questionnaires to Enneagram enthusiasts from all over the world. They were asked 14 questions about their self-image. In addition, they were also asked to send words, pictures, and phrases that exemplified their internal experience. I then followed up with interviews, especially when I found an interesting pattern, and there were many. For example, of the original 400 participants, 7 of the Type 3s sent images of people in the pose of victory. No other type sent a similar image. Not only do the different types use the same language, they also relate to one another in terms of archetypes. We're going to look at the images sent in by the types in this show. Although most of us may use similar vocabulary, I found that the types used particular words in combination with one another, and that the collection of words used was indicative of type. Today we're going to look at the idealized image and the core fears. We are also going to share with you the words and pictures the 9 types use to describe themselves in the resulting collages. Then we will take a second look at the Enneagram exemplars, but this time paying attention to the words they used and the expressions they display. Now let's look at each type individually.
Now we're going to take a look at what the research has revealed is the self-image and the core fear of each Enneagram type, so we can better understand what motivates each type's behavior. We'll start with Enneagram Type 1. We refer to Enneagram Type 1 as the moral perfectionist. The self-image that the research revealed for the Type 1 is I am good, right, responsible, in control, and appropriate. The core fear is of being wrong, bad, evil, or corruptible.
In addition, with the research, I found that the ones also like the words accurate, disciplined, respectable, objective, fair, and just. Now let's look at the video of the Type 1.
My name is Joanne Finizzo. I live in Fremont, California. I'm a 1, and I'm self-preserving. Reliable, dependable, orderly, capable, honest. I think being fair, seeing things from a 360-degree perspective so that I have all the facts to make decisions. The need to be right. The need to not make mistakes. Well, because everybody makes mistakes. There is no perfection, and so it's an unrealistic expectation. So I may think of myself as tough. It really always comes back to, no, it has to be right, it has to be true, it has to be honest, it has to be fair. Are we following the rules? Do we cross at the lights? Do we pick up our litter? I just really have this underlying constant motivation that things have to be right. It reduces the stress and anxiety and makes me less judgmental. I always hear that people find us very prickly, and I'm hoping that I have reached a point where maybe I'm less so.
The key to using the Enneagram is to understand that it's our unconscious motivation that creates our behavior. So when we look at this example of Enneagram Type 1, we can hear in Joanne's language that she repeatedly used words like fair, right, and not wanting to make a mistake. It's easy to imagine that someone who had a core fear of being wrong, bad, evil, or corruptible would create an entire life around wanting to be responsible, fair, and right, which is what we're seeing with Joanne. Next, Katherine is going to introduce us to the research that produced her amazing collages.
Now, all types want respect, but what I found with the 1s is that they want to be respectable. The way they sit, the way they examine things is from a very thorough, precise perspective. And if you look at this collage, the archetypal feeling is of being proper. There's even the highlights, fun with a purpose, room for improvement. There are lots of images of angels. And when I interviewed the Type 1s, they explained that this was due to the fact that they try very hard to be good, and that is not easy for them to do. In fact, there were so many images from the type 1s with wings that I had to leave many out. No other type sent in images of angels, only the type 1. The other thing is the hearts. And then one said that the heart exemplifies true purity, that the only thing that is truly pure is the heart. I would also suggest that quality and being ethical and responsible is really critical for the type 1. And if you look in the center picture, it says perfect home. All of us would like to have a perfect home, but the ones feel that they are morally obligated to do so and to have a nice home and be responsible.
What fascinates me with the collages is that you get such a sense of the appropriateness for the type 1. And this is someone who needs to appear appropriate to others at all times. There's such a sense of morality and ethics being really critical to this type. So the collage to me really exemplifies that. As a type 4, I have aligned to type 1, so I can relate to this a little bit, but it's not where I live, but I get it. It's this sense of uprightness and appropriateness. So I think now what we'll do is take a look at Enneagram Type 2. We refer to the Enneagram Type 2 as a supportive advisor. The key self-image that the research revealed is that the Type 2 wants to appear caring, nurturing, helpful, and appealing. Now again, what's so fascinating is to understand that this is coming from an unconscious core fear that was reported in thousands of questionnaires. And for the Enneagram Type 2, that core fear is of being worthless, needy, inconsequential, or dispensable.
Yes, and I initially did this research out of curiosity. I had no idea that it would reveal such consistent patterns. And in the case of the 2, the additional words were heartfelt, giving, considerate, concerned, altruistic, gracious, and empathetic. This type used hearts in terms of clothing, but not as a means of defining what is truly pure. So it's very, very different.
So it's a different way of even interpreting an archetype like the heart.
Right. The 2 is trying to show you their heartfulness, and the 1 is trying to honor and hold themselves to a standard of purity. And it's a very different focus in terms of the same image.
So let's take a look at a video of a Type 2 with this in mind.
My name is Peggy Costello. I live in Palo Alto, California. I am an Enneagram Type 2 and social instinct. I'm nurturing, gracious, helpful, supportive, and I can sometimes be frenetic. The 2 always being helpful, loving gathering people together, going out on a limb, meeting others' needs. My greatest strength is being able to intuit the needs of others and understand and know what they're feeling. I think when people are with me, they feel felt, and nurturing people and being supportive of people and being the wind under their wings. I find that I really need positive feedback, positive mirroring from other people. And if I don't get that, somehow I feel like I'm a failure. Not being able to express my needs directly to people sometimes comes out in ways that's complaining, or I can have resentment toward people for them not knowing what I need or not being appreciative of what I've done for them. What motivates me is making deep emotional connection with others.
Type 2s actually will have heart shapes archetypally in their body structure, and we can see that with Peggy. She actually has a heart-shaped face. The focus for Peggy, she even used the word helpful, loving, and that she's very focused on people's needs. So next, we're going to take a look at the archetypal images that were sent in to Katherine for her collages.
Yes, what was interesting in my research was to find that we all want to be loving, but it was the 2s and the 7s and the 9s that actually use the word loving as one of their 5 adjectives to describe themselves. Now, if we look at the archetypal image of the 2, we get a very different feeling than the 1. In fact, this was the last collage that I had put together. And the reason for that is it didn't have the clear, concise focus that the one did and the other types. But I showed this to twos that examined it, and what they reported is that it matched perfectly because they tried very hard to alter and be what other people need. But the continuous theme was the vie for attention. Now, as we learned last week, twos, threes, and fours all want to be the center of attention, but in three different ways. But in the case of the two, they'll do it through clothing. They'll do it in ways to catch your eye and engage you in some way. And it's about talking and giving in terms of the fairy godmother. But you'll also see the image of the princess shoe in the center right area. And this is the two sides of two. One is to be the bountiful giver, and the other that wants to receive. And so the two gives in order to be given to.
So here on this collage, what immediately strikes me is how warm it feels, that there's this invitation to make a relational connection. And that's what we see with two, is that if we look at their core fear of a fear of being inconsequential to others, what they do is they create this persona of a person who has emotionally what you need or can tend to your needs. And I really see that in the images here. I mean, that panda bear, I just want to touch it, and these warm, kind of feminine images. It's really, really amazing. So next, let's take a look at what the research revealed about Enneagram Type 3.
Yes, just to finish with the two, the hearts are on the clothing now, and in the balloons and in other images. Whereas we move to Type 3, and it's very different.
It's also in the heart center, but it's a very different feeling of the
Yes.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
So with Enneagram Type 3, the term that we use for them is the successful achiever. Their desired self-image that they're trying to project to the world is I'm successful, efficient, competent, and the best. We can really see this particular Enneagram type exemplified in American culture, particularly in the corporate world. The core fear that drives the motivation to have that self-image is a fear of failing, of being incompetent or unable to do, or exposed as not being as competent as they want to project.
Or not enough. The other words regularly was dynamic, ambitious, motivated, goal-oriented, focused, and adaptable. They really saw that they had the ability to shift and change according to whatever the environment was, like the chameleon.
So now let's keep this in mind and take a look at an interview with an Enneagram Type 3.
I'm Dave Roos. I live in Los Altos. I'm a 3, the performer type. I'm a self-pres for sure. I like to think of myself as very efficient. With the 3, it's a funny thing that the 3 doesn't have to do it perfectly like the 1. The 3 just wants to get it done. And we're very good at doing that. One of my biggest challenges, the way I knew I was a 3, was when I heard the 3 described as a person who wasn't able to take a vacation. And on vacations, it can be very, very difficult because there's nothing to do. And so the challenge is, if there's nothing to do, then I feel absolutely lost. Once I wanted to run under a 6-minute mile, and I ran under a 6-minute mile, and I stopped running for a period of time because there was nothing else to do. Goal orientation is all that there is. I mean, of course that's not true, but that was my thinking. I know that people have often said that if it's inscribed on your tombstone, he was always at his office. Is that really what you want? And for 3, that is actually really what they want. But there are other things in life besides just getting the job done. Self-confidence can get you into huge trouble. And it's lovely to feel that you can do something and then go ahead and do it. But it's really horrible when you say you can do something and you go and make a disaster out of it. I think the high side of being a 3 is loving to have these challenges.
So what's fascinating with this example of Enneagram Type 3 is that here we hear someone talking about having difficulty on a vacation because they don't know what to do. This occurs because the core fear for the 3 is of being incompetent or unable to do. So the focus is on wanting to constantly set goals and achieve things to show how competent they are and that they're the best. So now let's take a look at what the collage came out for Enneagram Type 3.
Yeah, it's a way to be reminded that they're accomplished. So if we look at this archetypal collection of images, we have a lot more of those images I mentioned, where the victory pose and the yes. And what amazed me is that I received this image from people from all over the world. It wasn't just in the United States, for example. Now, these were done in 1995 when this original research was conducted, but threes currently still relate to these images and would have chosen them. In fact, there were so many that I had to limit it and put just a few of them on there, but I did put quite a few because it was so critical. And the laser focus, you'll see also in the center, the woman looking at her watch. Threes are very efficient. And yet, up in the left corner, you'll see a man biting his fingernails. And what threes shared is that underneath that drive for success is someone that is doubting that they can accomplish it and trying harder and harder and harder and setting more and more goals, as our exemplar gave us an example of. They want to look cool. They want to look refined. They want to look polished. They want to project the image of success. So they want to look good at whatever they do.
Yeah, and here we really can see in the images of the three sent in this desire to really appear as a successful person. Whereas with the two, there's a sense of, I want to create a relationship with you. And with the one, we have this appropriateness and this steadfastness. But with the three, there's all this movement. There's a sense of high self-confidence. Like you said, the victory pose. It's a very different energy. It's very much the energy of really wanting to be the exemplar of the successful person. When I see the images here, I particularly notice, as you mentioned, the woman with the watch and all the poses that show a successful achievement.
Yes, and even the magazines show that as well.
So let's take a look now. We're still in the Heart Center. 2, 3, and 4 are heart types. Let's take a look at the next heart type, Enneagram Type 4. We refer to the Enneagram Type 4 as the romantic individualist. The research revealed that the desired self-image for Enneagram Type 4 is to be unique, special, aesthetic, and tasteful. Now, what would drive someone to want to be that way? Well, the research showed that the core fear is a fear of being inadequate, emotionally cut off, defective, or flawed.
Yeah, what I really want to add is that almost every single 4 in my initial research used the word accomplished. So it isn't just achieving. They want to have the image of accomplishment, and in a particular special way. They also really like to be seen as deep, intuitive, sensitive, self-revealing, and self-aware.
So let's take a look at a video of an Enneagram Type 4.
My name is Tara. I live in Fremont. I'm a sexual 4. Creative, passionate. I'm a bit of a snob as far as art and design. More counterculture, not mainstream culture. I really like approval. That's a big motivator for me. And also to create something unique. I think that there's an ability in the 4 to transform something ordinary into something extraordinary. That passion and intensity can actually transform. But certainly in my younger years, I would always think, I saw someone and I would say, oh, they look like they have a perfect life. I want that and I don't have that. So that I either love or I hate. And it's that intense. It's the facial expressions, the body, that everything goes into that expression. My work as a 4 is allowing the mind to moderate as well as the emotions, because I think the emotions are very good guideposts and indicators and not to be ignored. However, it'd be nice to have more of a blended experience.
Here we have one of the most emotionally intense types on the Enneagram. And you can even hear in her language that she used the term, I either love something or I hate something. The Enneagram Type 4 wants to be special, aesthetic, and tasteful, but underneath that, there's a fear of being defective or flawed. So the focus is on having these strong feelings and strong connections. So next, let's take a look at a collage and see what images the Type 4 sent in.
So the first thing you might notice about the archetypal collection here is that there's a lot of red. There's dark colors with red accents, fuchsia accents, the colors of passion. And this is what the 4 shared with me. There are also images that show posturing, show a sense of aesthetics and details that we didn't see on the first 2 or 3 collages, as well as an identification with pain. The center image says 20th century blues. So that lets us know that the 4s think in terms of their feelings and their sad feelings, nostalgia, and depression. But it's important to distinguish the difference between melancholy and true depression. Any of us can have depression, but 4s almost find a little delight in that which is a little sad, memories that remind them of events. This type, more than any other, is attached to those events, and as I mentioned earlier, to the past.
So here we have a type that really focuses deeply internally on themselves. There's a sense with the Type 4 of really having this rich internal emotional life. And the healthy 4 could bring that forward and really help us understand what the human experience is. So we certainly see that on this collage in a lot of different places. I mean, all of the kind of the wistful posing of the different images that were sent in. And I'm a Type 4, and I particularly relate to the story that you talked about with the little monkey up in the upper left-hand corner, that the monkey there, the 4 underneath actually feels kind of plain, and that they won't be noticed or they won't be special. So what they feel like they have to do is to sort of make themselves unique somehow so that they'll be worthy of other people's attention. And we see that with the decorated woman and all the fancy clothing. So now let's go and take a look at what the research revealed about Enneagram Type 5. We refer to the Type 5 as the investigative thinker. We've moved into the head center here. So we've gone from 2, 3, and 4, which was in the heart triad. These are the relational types. And now we're moving into the head center. So the self-image for the Type 5 is I am perceptive, knowledgeable, observant, and different. The core fear that creates that self-image is a fear of being overwhelmed, of intrusion, ignorance, not existing, or annihilation.
And in addition, the words that 5s commonly used were different, scholarly, reserved, conceptual, cerebral, and investigative. In fact, many types wanted to be different, but it was only the 5 that would actually write it down. Sometimes the 4 with the 5 wing, but it was more indicative of Type 5. Now let's look at the video of the Type 5.
My name is Danny Stern, and I'm a Type 5, and I'm a 1-to-1. Resourceful, skeptical, analytical. I'd also, beyond the adjective, say a puzzle solver. Being able to not only see the whole picture, but also being able to understand how things work, how we got here, what the components are, and what the dynamics of all those components are. Being able to break apart a situation and understand what gets us to where we want to go. I'm usually the one that's a little bit more plotting than reactive. I think my greatest strengths have always been being able to analyze a situation, both being able to get the big picture of something, as well as understanding all the small dynamics that make it what it is, the motivations of people involved, how things are going to come together, the mechanics of it. I think 5s are constantly analyzing what's in front of them, and they're constantly making forward predictions based upon that. I think there are kind of 2 voices within, at least me as a 5. There is a dispassionate side, seeing things as being, again, more mechanical. I think the greatest weakness has been getting out of my own head. As I live in it a lot. There's more randomness
Okay.
in the world than I think a 5 or I'm totally comfortable with. It's hard sometimes to see when everything has a certain logical course that even though it's perfectly logical, isn't necessarily going to be the outcome. It's a desire to be expert in something. No, there's a constant desire to get rid of clutter, to look at things in very simple terms.
In this fascinating example of Enneagram Type 5, we can really hear the words that were found in our research. Danny here used the term analyze 3 or 4 times. He also talked about living in his head. So with the Enneagram Type 5, we really get a sense of someone who is highly intellectual and very much focused on thinking and seeing the world through their mind. So let's take a look at the images the Type 5 sent in.
Well, let's first go through the words as well. In my research, what I found is that the 5s didn't want surplus in their life, that it was overwhelming and complicated. And the additional words that they used really exemplified that. So his video hit on a very important point. So now what we're looking at is a very complex collage. This was the first collage that had a lot of images and tiny images and multiple images within images. You do see some of the color usage that we saw in the 4, but overall there's a lot of cerebral sort of energy, attention to being in isolation. 5s tend to think of themselves that way. The thinker is an important symbol. And the actual upper right corner, you'll see compartmentalization, so even the globe is broken into divisions, and there's intensity through the eyes. The 5 and 8 both have this intensity, but with the 5 it's hidden behind something, whereas the 8, it's much more overt.
Here we really get a sense of someone who's living in their mind. You really can see it in all these images that there's this intense intellectual energy coming through the eyes. And also right in the middle of the collage is this book. And we know that 5s crave knowledge, and that that's how they interact with the world, is wanting to have this understanding of what's going on and to really be the observer. So we really get that energy. With the 5, there can be a little bit of a distant quality, and I feel that even looking at the collage, that there's an intellectual, very intelligent quality to all of these images, but there's also a sense of being a little bit emotionally distant, a little bit further away, whereas with the heart types, you have the sense of them being right there emotionally in the room. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the research revealed about Enneagram Type 6. So we refer to the Type 6 as the loyal guardian. The desired self-image for Type 6 is I am loyal, dedicated, dutiful, compliant, or rebellious. Now, Type 6 is a very interesting type. Their core fear is actually a fear of fear itself, which is a fear that they might be afraid, a fear of a tendency to submit and being alone or blamed.
Yes, and the other words that the 6s used were responsible. Now, the 1s identified with being responsible, but so do 6s, which is why it can be a common look-alike. And they also saw themselves as curious, inquisitive, skeptical, the devil's advocate, reliable, and of course with the counterphobic 6, more provocative and challenging, which is why they can be a little bit of a look-alike for the 8, the more counterphobic 6. So now let's look at the video of the 6.
Hi, well, I'm David. I'm right here from Palo Alto. My type is Type 6 on the Enneagram, the loyal skeptic, and my lead instinct is the one-to-one, about relationship. I'm warm and friendly to people. I feel like if I can be warm and friendly to people, they'll be warm and friendly back. It increases my likelihood that they can be trusted. And then the second thing is I can be really counted upon. I'm pretty loyal. And then I'm a good problem solver. I can see what can go wrong and be pretty analytical about things. And then I believe I can be thoughtful. on the negative side is I can get overly doubtful of people and mistrust them because I can always see something you can't count on. I'm good at seeing underdog causes, what can go wrong in the world, and trying to, because you can see, you can doubt, where things are going. And so I think that's my greatest strength, taking on challenges and making things work out. Well, I think there's two kinds of things sixes do. One is this more sort of counterphobic, where you take on the challenge. If you can meet the challenge, that brings you security for a while, brings you a sense of certainty. And the other way is to avoid things, and I can do some of that too. If it's scary, you avoid it, and then you can feel at least safe temporarily. I think the biggest part is the doubting mind itself. If you're looking for what can go wrong, you can always find something. I mean, it's just the way it is. So it's helped me, switch from doubt to more sense of trust, from mistrusting things to trust. And from that doubt to more faith in myself and other people and all the positives that can happen, made a huge difference.
Amazingly, in this particular exemplar, this 6 actually used the word doubt 5 different times. This is a type who tends to doubt their own thinking, and they look for authorities outside themselves. So let's take a look at the collage for Enneagram Type 6.
Mm-hmm. Now with the 6, the first thing you'll notice is that the right top corner and the left top corner are very different. And it's a great image of water rafting. And on one side, on the left side, you see someone that's showing their fear. This is the phobic 6. And on the other side, you're showing someone that's holding their fear back. And this is the counterphobic 6. It's a huge distinction. The phobic 6 always knows that they're a 6, but the counterphobic 6 can identify with other types because they're trying to prove to themselves that they're not afraid. But they do feel apprehension, a moment of pause, of hesitation. And this is the hallmark of 6. They're trying to assess. They're in the mental center. Now, the center of this collage says skeptical inquirer. Well, this is really key to type 6 because they're measuring, they're noticing incoming, outgoing, inconsistencies. And there are a lot of images that have groups of people. Now, even those that are not social in nature will track what groups of others are doing. There are a flock of birds, there are a group of bears, there are 3 people in a couple of the images, and of course the television series Friends was a great example of what happens when people come together and can be at ease with one another.
What I noticed in this collage is definitely this sense of friendliness and also this sense of fear or doubt, coupled with this desire to be part of a group or coupled with others. It has a very different feel. It's sort of this friendly person who has a little bit of doubt or skepticism underneath it. And you can see that in the imagery. There's also not a sense here of like the 3 wanting to stand out like the peacock, but wanting to be part of the group and to dress in a way that isn't going to draw too much attention to yourself.
To not stand out and be a target.
And this type, as I understand, has a fear of getting in trouble too.
Yes.
So let's take a look at what the research revealed about Enneagram Type 7. We refer to the 7 as the entertaining optimist. The self-image for the Type 7 is I am happy, optimistic, fun, enthusiastic, and playful. The underlying core fear that creates that self-image is a fear of being incomplete, inferior, limited, or of missing out.
Yes, and I also found in the research that the 7s like the word creative. Now, there were 3 types that like the word creative, the 4, 7, and the 8, but the 7s used it more than anyone else. They also liked the word interested as well as interesting, diverse, positive, and they would mention that they go with the flow, that they like to follow the energy and the mood, and not to be stagnant or rigid or staying in the same place too long. They like variety. Now let's look at the video of Type 7.
My name is Atta. I live in Fremont. My type is 7. I'm a 1-to-1. Fun-loving, imaginative, easygoing, congenial, heady. You know, I say the same hello to a janitor than I say to my boss or to somebody above me in a hierarchy. It seems like, you know, it's more of a person to person rather than a role to role. I don't know how else to describe that. I can make light of things or be out of context sometimes and say things that people could just be shocked. But for me, yeah, it would just take the boredom out of things would be the motive. I feel like I can bring that energy, that high bubbly energy to topics that I'm interested in and kind of sell that to others and want to share that sort of energy with them. I would say progressive thinking or futuristic thinking would be how I'd characteristically describe myself. For me, it's more like why not? You know, why not go there and why not try that even if it fails? For me, it's very easy to learn new things.
So here we have a type that's very much focused on being optimistic, fun, and enthusiastic. And if you listen to the language that he used terms like make light, wanted to take the boredom out of things, to be on a high bubble, and that he's future focused. So let's take a look at what the archetypes were sent in for Enneagram Type 7.
It's interesting that his use of the word bubbly. You'll notice that there are many pictures on this collage that show celebration. The 7, more than any other type, wants to enjoy life, savor it. Now, all of us enjoy having fun with our friends, but no other type sent in pictures of celebration. They also have pictures of images in motion. It was great that the types could send in even football players that had the right number on their jersey. But you'll notice in this case, in the lower left-hand corner, the football player is in the process of moving, whereas with the 3, we saw more of the pose of victory. And this is very indicative of 7. Escape magazine is a great analogy because they like to travel more than any other type. And they like to capture the spirit of any given situation, to see things and to experience things, especially the possibilities.
What I really notice on this collage is all the use of bright colors.
Oh, absolutely.
That everything is very bright and playful and upbeat.
And warm.
And warm, and it's very extroverted, whereas on the 4 collage we have this really introverted aesthetic feeling. Here we have this very extroverted aesthetic kind of a feeling. So when I look at, again, like you said, all the movement, there's dancing on here. It's a very different feeling than we have with the other types. So let's take a look at what the research revealed about Enneagram Type 8. We refer to the 8 as the challenging protector. The self-image for the Type 8 is I'm invincible, powerful, protective, and authentic. The core fear that's driving that self-image is a fear of being weak, vulnerable, powerless, harmed, or controlled. And again, it's really important to remember as we go through these that for most of us, these core fears are not conscious. But the way we're behaving in our everyday life is being driven by this. And when we can become aware of it, we can begin to free ourselves from this habitual behavior.
What's interesting is that the Type 8s also use the word bold, opinionated, decisive, honest, straightforward, direct, and that they call a spade a spade. They're very comfortable with saying what is. And they don't try as hard to smooth out the edges or polish what they say. They feel it's more important to tell the truth of whatever experience they're having. In fact, they usually have to learn how to deliver things in a softer way. Now let's look at the video of the Type 8.
My name is Spencer Chernick. I live in Scotts Valley, California. I am an 8. The words I would use to describe myself as a Type 8 would be honest, confident. I think protectiveness shows up in my life with loved ones because if someone were to mess with anyone that I cared about, it's not even like I go through a thought process of how I'm going to handle the situation. It's just a pretty quick reaction. This is not going to happen. I'm not going to let it happen kind of thing. As an 8, I think the thing I've had trouble with the most is I tend to be a little overbearing, overpowering. I imposing what I think or what I want. I don't even realize it a lot of the time. As an 8, I find justice and fairness to be of the utmost importance. If something's not fair, it drives me absolutely crazy. And I live by that. As an 8, I would say what motivates me the most is doing things or, having things that accumulate respect. As an 8, I am very comfortable in a role of power and leadership. In fact, I am not comfortable if I'm in a subordinate role, but I've had to learn over time. Yeah, as an 8, I think trust is a big thing.
So here we have a type that puts out a very powerful, protective persona. And if you listen to his language, he said a lot about he couldn't stand something if it wasn't fair, that power and leadership were big issues to him, as well as trust. So my understanding with this type is that there's a big focus on issues of injustice. So before we go to the collage, can you tell me a little bit about how that works for an 8 as a type 8?
Well, it's different than the type 1 who sees themselves as just. The 8 is triggered and mobilizes into action when they see an injustice. When there's an inequity of power, they feel compelled to move into any power vacuum and take charge and protect the weak and the vulnerable.
We see this type a lot in leadership positions in companies and throughout the world. And when people learn the Enneagram, a key thing to understand is to determine if someone's a type 8, they must be protecting something. This isn't just a strong person who's bossing people around. It's someone who is actually highly protective of certain people in their inner circle. So let's take a look at the collage and see what the Enneagram Type 8 sent in.
Now this color combination and archetypal images are more intense. The word boom and the center collage that says bullies is interesting because the types put that there because they remembered when they were bullied as a child and they never wanted to be bullied again. So they toughened up, they hardened their exterior, and they chose to never show again feeling weak or vulnerable because that's what they want to avoid at all costs. In fact, it's all about attitude. So if you display threat, 9 times out of 10, people will back down. And the 8 really doesn't want to engage, but they also have a tender side that is very caring of those in their circle of care.
So with the 5, 6, and 7 on those collages, I really notice this there's almost a light, there's a head energy compared to what we have here. And on this 8 collage, I really feel the body base, this sense of physical embodiment and of this extroverted, powerful, strong energy. And these look like a type of people that I could really depend on or that I could really count on. But there's also a little bit of a fierce quality where I'm a little intimidated by the 8. Can you talk about that at all?
Yes, it's not reactive fierceness. It's more like this. It's like, you want to mess with me? Are you sure you want to do that? There are consequences to messing with me. Whether it's implication or if they actually say it, you get the message. Sometimes it's just energetic because the energy is so big.
So here, this is a type that's body-based. They're sensing things through their gut. They aren't processing everything through their head. So how does that work for you as what's called a gut type? I mean, how do you experience life that you just make decisions through your body?
Gut instinct. You know things by what you feel on an instinctual level rather than the assessments like the head type or the feelings like the heart type. It's very much in the gut. It's an attitude.
Well, as we mentioned in the first show, they're actually finding that there are brain type cells, not just in the brain, but also in the gut and in the heart. And I'm very curious to find out at some point in the future, we find out that gut types like 8s actually have more brain type cells actually in their gut. And if heart types like 2s, 3s, and 4s, I'm a heart type, maybe we actually have more of these type of nerve cells in our heart, which is why we focus so much on relations and emotions. This type we see so much in leadership positions, and particularly we can see them running countries, running corporations. And
not always well, but
right. Yeah. So it's a very strong type. So what's a real quick thing on what we can do if we meet an 8, how we can have a good relationship or rapport with them?
To be direct and to only speak about what you know. Don't try and couch things or take too long saying what you want to say. Say it, then explain it. It's really important to be direct and to the point with another 8.
All right, well, let's take a look at the next gut type, Enneagram Type 9. We call the 9 the peaceful mediator, and the research that the 9s sent in, the language that they sent in at their desired self-image, is that they want to appear agreeable, easygoing, peaceful, and unassuming. The core fear for the 9s was revealed as being a fear of lovelessness, of being shut out, discordant, or inharmonious.
Yes, this was a very interesting type because there are 2 versions of the 9. Those that identifying with being agreeable and those that have reactivity. And then they feel bad when they're not agreeable. So it's important to understand that for the 9, they want the harmony, regardless of how they may behave in any given moment. Ideally, they want the peace and harmony. In fact, the other words that they used were good listener, gentle, humble, receptive, accepting, and pleasant. So even if they were in conflict, they didn't like it. They don't like the feeling in their body. So let's look at the video of Type 9.
My name is Ben. I live in Santa Cruz, California. My Enneagram type is 9, and my instinctual subtype is self-preservation. I would say that I'm inclusive. I like everybody to feel welcome and important, and I'm very considerate. My greatest strength, I would say, is my ability to see different points of view and to understand them and not to be stuck in a single mindset. My greatest weakness is lack of motivation at times for things that I am sort of ambivalent on or sort of want to do, sort of don't want to do. It's hard to just, find the motivation or the oomph to just do it sometimes. I can be sort of passive aggressive and hesitant. I see myself as a force of nature in particular situations. Once I know what's going on and I know what I have to do, the task is in front of me, it's very easy. I think the difficulty is when it's unclear what I should be doing. Avoiding conflict is definitely a big thing. I think I feel it deeper than a lot of people, and it's difficult for me to get over that hurdle or over that hump to confront something which needs to be confronted. What motivates me is people getting along and respecting each other and having friendly, and not just friendly, but like loving relations with each other. Harmony and peace, really, I would say. And that's one of the things that really struck me when I read about the Type 9, and what I identified with is this idea of people just getting along with each other and having peace.
So here we have an Enneagram Type 9, and again, as we close up on the types, what just fascinates me is the way that each of these types actually uses the same language. These types are not rehearsed. They don't know our research at all. And it's just amazing to me. He's using words like harmony, peace, avoiding conflict, and just loving that people can just get along. So let's take a look at the collage on Enneagram Type 9.
In fact, the 9s will report that they go along to get along and that they want this sense of harmony. There's also simplicity. In the research, what they shared is that they avoid complication, and that you'll notice that this particular archetypal image has a lot of big pictures, very different from this 5. And when I tried to get smaller pictures from the Type 9s, they said, no, we don't like the complexity or the overcomplication. They liked it big. I felt like I had not done them justice. Now, this is very different, though, with the intellectual 9, which does exist. They're very interested in gathering and collecting data and understanding, but they still want peace. They still want harmony. They have a different pace than the 5. But you'll notice their image with soft, diffuse eyes, and they have this pose, but it's with a circle. It's with openness, receptivity. And the middle image is the most symbolic, where there's a hammock with no one in it. And when I asked the 9s, wouldn't you rather have a picture where you're lying in the hammock and you're feeling comfortable, or see someone that's doing that, and they said, no, 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 no. It's far better to have no one there, because there's no one that you have to wait to have them leave. There's no one that could tell you no, and you don't have anyone telling you to hurry up.
What I notice with this collage is the lack of individual differentiation. That there's this very accepting, harmonious presentation of peacefulness. You really feel that.
And softness.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think next we'll go ahead and wrap up the show and let people know some resources that they can use to continue their studies with the Enneagram. Our website is enneagram.net. We do have a number of testing instruments there. There's some free tests that can kind of get you started, and then there's the more professional testing instruments which you can take if that interests you. And Katherine, would you like to tell us what some of the upcoming shows are going to hold?
Yes, we want to do the next show on the tri-type, which is what are the 3 types you use predominantly. We've addressed the most dominant type, but there are subtleties. The Enneagram is simple, yet also complex, and helps you to understand different aspects of your personality. Then we'll go into the instinctual subtypes.
So we thank you for joining us, and we hope you can join us on our next show.